there's a long history of me with Chevy. We could get into that later if you want to. God used Chevy that day. I knew he was an atheist. I was like, why don't I try to meet him where he's at?
So you've talked to people from Ozzy Osbourne who recently passed, and that kind of went viral, that interview about you giving the Bible to him. And you've talked to Tom Cruise, and you just mentioned before we start recording, Jeff Goldblum. What are some of the most profoundly impactful stories? Guys, welcome back to ISO Insights. I'm extremely excited today because we are having on our podcast somebody we actually recently, I saw him on YouTube. This is how I was introduced to this gentleman. You can check out his website at celebrityevangelist.org. He's Brother Dylan Novak. Brother Dylan, thank you so much for coming on ISO Insights. Got to say that first.
Hey, thank you so much, Matthew. Appreciate you.
So I saw this. This is actually, funny enough, my mother-in-law's birthday is when this got brought up because I just saw this episode of another guy, and I'll show his interview here as well, just plug him. But he was doing a podcast interview of Dylan, and they ended up talking about Ozzy Osbourne, which I'm sure Dylan can talk in greater detail in a little bit about. But Dylan, as his ministry, he felt a burden years ago to go and meet with celebrities because a lot of Christians treat celebrities and people in Hollywood like that's just a no-fly zone.
Right.
But he felt a burden for people that a lot of people don't even think to reach out to. So, Dylan, I want to say I heard a little bit about your testimony that your ministry began when you were 13 after you heard Margot Kidder talking about her being an atheist. So can you tell me a little bit about how God put a burden on your heart and how this all started for you?
Yeah, so I am just a huge superhero pop culture nerd. I still am. I'm wearing Green Lantern socks right now as we speak. But I was getting ready to go to a Comic-Con. I'd asked my parents to take me. I wanted to meet these celebrities who played the characters that I, in a sense, as a kid, idolized. And that's one thing I feel like we don't talk about enough in church is that, we read in the Bible, don't put any other idols before me. And we automatically think of these golden statues, these graven images. But really, it's anything in our life that takes the place of God. Anything that we put in front of God as a priority. For that matter, ministry can become an idol if you don't have a proper relationship with God. I recently preached about that yesterday with my youth group. But I really looked up to these superheroes. And I was watching interviews of Margot Kidder and the other celebrities I was going to get to meet because I was just excited. I came across an interview of her where she said she was an atheist. And I remember I was sitting in a chair and I just felt punched in the gut. And that was when reality hit me, that she is a soul, just like you, just like me, on her way to heaven or hell. And I knew that she was on her way to hell because she didn't know Jesus as her personal Lord and Savior. And I was just very burdened by that. I got saved when I was 8 years old, and I'd always had a burden for souls. But that took it to another level. It was almost like it hit me personally. Because, we hear parents all the time say when you're watching something, you're inviting that into your household with your kids. So watch what you're watching. So I'm like, I was a homeschool kid, and I had friends at church and stuff, but they weren't really true friends. They weren't really close friends. So in a sense, I'm like, these are my friends, and I want to tell them about Jesus. And I prayed, God, please send somebody to tell her about you before it's eternally too late. And my heart was very convicted. What about you? You're going to be right in front of her. Why not you? And I played Jonah for a couple of days. I didn't want to do that because sharing the gospel, doing evangelism, it's not something that just comes, I don't think it comes naturally to anybody because we're going against social norms. We're going out of our comfort zone. And my wife, last week, we were talking about it. She had a great analogy. Sharing the gospel and evangelizing is like a muscle. In order to get strong and good at it, you have to constantly work out. You constantly have to better yourself. The more you do it, the more comfortable you're at doing it, the more you're more prepared, you're stronger. But then people who are like, I'm going to take a break for a while. I need some me time. It's harder to get back in that routine. It's harder to get back out of that rut. So, I was like, God, please, anybody but me. And that conviction didn't go away. So I got some gospel tracts from my church, just little gospel pamphlets, went to the event, gave them out to everybody I met, and everybody was receptive in the face-to-face sense, including Margot. And that's kind of where the ministry stayed for 7 years. I would go to different Comic Con events. I would go, if I went to a concert or some event where a celebrity was speaking or something, I would take a tract and I would loosely research what they believed just to be mentally prepared. What am I about to get into? But it didn't become a full-blown ministry until 2015.
Wow. So at that point, when you were passing out these tracts, did you find that God was putting more of a sense of, I need to kind of raise the level that I'm reaching out to these people? Because I know now your common practice is to get a Bible with their name printed on it. How did
Right.
you kind of refine your approach in ministering the gospel to these people?
So it's so funny. It's just through the past decade, there have been many different changes with the approach because, like you said, it's just like, all
Mm.
right, let's level up in a sense.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be inconsiderate where it's like, here, I'm giving you this 10-pound gift that I'm expecting you to go on tour with, to go through airport security with, and all of that. So
Mhm.
it's
Here's my
like
10 series commentary for you.
right here. Let me grab. Here's this Greg Laurie study guide. It's like, yeah, no. But like even yesterday, we were at a show in Kingsport, Tennessee, and there was this one guy that I was like, all right, I want to give him this, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We can't be that guy because again, you don't want to overwhelm. Less is more. So when the ministry began full time in 2015, I had the opportunity to try to meet James Taylor on the street, and I remember telling my mom, based off the things he said, I wish I could say this, this, and this. I may not have the time. And that's a common question people asking. How long do you get with these celebrities? There's
Mm.
no telling. For example, I've had 5 seconds with a celebrity. I've had 2 seconds with a celebrity. I've had 20 minutes. I've had a couple hours. It's completely up to them. Even on the street, it's up to them for the most part. So my mom encouraged me, why don't you write him a letter? Why don't you say everything that you want to say in a letter and give it to him that way? And I was like, well, that's a good idea. And so that's when the writing the letters began. And every letter is sculpted to fit the personality, the mindset, the questions that individual has said.
Wow.
Sometimes we go into it blindly, like, I don't know what this person believes. And you can kind of go, I hate to say generic, but you can go more of a generic approach. You can also, it's like, okay, well, you say that you're agnostic, but you have this question. Let's address this question, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Bibles became a thing very quickly in 2015. But then, and that was kind of the standard Bible, letter, some tracts. In 2016, Chevy Chase told me, he said, wow, you're trying to give an atheist a Bible. That's really stupid. And there's a long history of me with Chevy. We could get into that later if you want
Mm.
to. But God used Chevy that day because I was like, I remember driving home. I was defeated. I was like, this was awful. But then it kept resonating in my mind. I was like, well, why don't I try to meet, I knew he was an atheist. I was like, why don't I try to meet him where he's at? Why don't I try to go that approach? So that's where some of Lee Strobel's material came in, the case for Christ, the case for a creator, that kind of thing. So it's just ever been evolving in that way.
Wow. Well, first of all, I want to say, good on you for maintaining a relationship with even the people that rejected you and like still going to these conferences to follow up. That's pretty awesome. Because a lot of people, they've been like, no, disengage, after
Yeah,
they felt
right.
like they got rejected. So that's pretty awesome, man. So first of all, I got to hear about this relationship with Chevy Chase. If you feel like you could share it, because
Absolutely.
now I've been led on here. I've got to know.
So it's not too deep. It's really sad. You can be praying for him. So that
Okay.
was 2016 that I just told you about. So 2019, I had an opportunity to see him again, and I reminded him of that encounter, and he was very, very grumpy. We'll say that word.
Yeah.
And his daughter was with him. I was wearing a Christmas vacation shirt because sometimes I like to wear the Christian shirts because it's such a great conversation starter. But other times I'm like, I need to do something to establish myself. Like, hey, I'm a fan or whatever. I think God has allowed me to be a fan of who I needed to be a fan of to break down some walls. Paul Simon's one, Chevy Chase is another. And she was like, Dad, he has you on his shirt. And I'll never forget, he's in the wheelchair and he goes, "Thank you, I want to share." And I was like, you're being a jerk, but you're still funny. And I reminded him of that conversation. And I said, "I got you this. This is more sculpted to your beliefs." And he looked at it and he said, "I really appreciate that. Thank you. Sorry, I was so."
Wow.
Well, then
Wow.
through the years, it started getting better. I would see him again. "Hi, Mr. Chase, how are you doing?" And it was always walking on thin ice with him. There was never any in-depth conversation, but his manager started remembering me, obviously, because there's not many people doing something like this. It stands out. And then Chevy would start to remember. Like I said, it was very surface level. So about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was in Chicago. This was the sixth or seventh time I'd seen Chevy. And I thought, this might be the last time I see Chevy. I need to I should probably just give him a Bible now, because this may be the last time I see him. There seems to be some growth, and there comes a point with evangelism. You've got to do that push of, are you ready to make a decision? Are you ready to follow Christ? What is your
Yeah.
final say? So I walk into the little booth where he is, and in pure Chevy form, he goes, "Oh, you get uglier every time."
Oh
Which
my
again, I'm like,
gosh.
I've grown up around that humor my whole life. I can work with that very well. And I just hit him back with, I said, "You get more beautiful every time I see you." And he goes, "Oh,
Mm.
I know." And that's the sad thing. He started off in such a good mood.
Yeah.
We just surface level talked for a second. I said, "Well, Chevy, I really love you, care about you. I'm always praying for you." "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "So I got you this. My wife and I got you this." And he goes, "What is it?" And I said, "It's a Bible. It's super giant print. It's easier for you to read. Got your name embossed there on the cover." And I won't say quote for quote what he said, but he said, "What a waste of fill in the blank money." And I immediately, my heart dropped. And I was like,
Mm.
this is it. Because again, there comes a point when somebody is like, "I don't want to hear it." That is where you disengage. And his
Mm.
manager goes, "Oh, no, no, he's just kidding. You know his personality." And he turns, he goes, "No, I'm not. Get it away from me. I don't want it." I said, "No, it's fine. He doesn't want it. We're good. We're done." And his manager was irritated at Chevy, just his attitude. And he even came and apologized to me later. And I said, "Listen, I would rather somebody just be honest with me than to be fake. I can't
Mm.
stand fake people." And Chevy just kind of sits there and he goes, "I could have said that nicer. I've looked at what you've given me. I've read it. I don't care. I've not changed my mind. I don't care about him. I don't care about this. It's not me. So I don't waste your time and money on me anymore."
Mm.
And I said, "I appreciate you being honest with me." I said, "Can't promise this is the last time you'll ever see me." Because again, running these convention circuits, you never know. I said, "Can't promise it's the last time you'll ever see me, but I can promise it's the last time I'm ever going to try to give you something like this, because you've said you don't want it. But just know that me and thousands of other people, we love you. We're praying for you." "Oh, okay. Let's take the photo." "Okay. Let me put on a smile for this." It was very sad. And,
Mm.
and I share that story not to bash Chevy, but to have, first of all, have people pray for him. Because again,
Yeah.
he's heard the word, he's heard the gospel, he knows the truth, whether he wants to accept it or not. So be praying for him. And also, I never want to be the missionary or evangelist who gets up and goes, "Everything is beautiful, everything is awesome." And it's like, it's not always.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really rough. And sometimes you get some really nasty rejections. Like last night, there's this well-known Christian page, Masculine Christianity, I think is what it's called. They made a very nice post about me. And people, and it's reached a lot of people, a lot of engagement. And this lady commented, she said, "I have one of his Bibles. I volunteer with a celebrity who didn't want it, but again, it's seeds planted." And on one hand, I'm like, "Oh, that's discouraging." But on the other hand, and I'm not going to say who it was. I know exactly which celebrity it was. I've not posted this celebrity. And I reached out to the lady. She confirmed who it was. And she said, "Please don't make that public." And I said, I won't. But before I even guessed, I told my wife, before I knew, I told my wife, I said, "I think it's this person." And
Mm.
I was correct. Because again, you can tell sometimes, and it's the same with street evangelism. Somebody's talking to you and they're like, "Okay, yeah, sure, whatever." And it's like, well, The seed was still planted. We're not supposed to be the ones to save people. We're the ones just supposed to tell people how they can be saved. I heard a very encouraging word a couple of days ago. There's this voice actor. His name is Andy Field. People would know him as a voice from the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, and he is a devout born again Christian. He follows the ministry. He is, seems to be a really good guy. And he said, my church, he said, I'm in Louisiana, and we go to Mardi Gras every year, handing out tracts. And at the end of Mardi Gras, the street is covered in our tracts. And he said, I remember the first year I did it, I went to my pastor and said, what are we doing? We're wasting our time. We're wasting our money. We're wasting our resources. Nobody's reading it. He said, my pastor was awesome. Our church would sweep the Mardi Gras street. Like, that was part of our ministry, which I'm like, God bless you. That is rough. And he said, my pastor collected every tract on the ground, covered in throw up, covered in beer, whatever it may be covered in, counted them. He said, we knew how many tracts we started with. We knew how many we gave out, and we totaled it up, and it was less than 5%. And he said, you never know what's in someone's pocket that when they sober up, that's going to come to them. And he said, and there's never been a year that our church has evangelized at Mardi Gras that we don't have somebody come to us afterwards through phone call, in person, and say, I need to be saved. And he said, isn't it worth it for that one soul? We get discouraged looking like, oh man, we wasted our time, but it was worth it if one soul was changed. That's my mindset with ministry.
That's incredible. First of all, that's like a masterclass in encouragement for
Exactly.
anyone that's working for God. Paul said, one man sows, another man waters. So sometimes we sow a seed and we don't know what the results are because we may walk away, but God said in his word, he's going to have a follow-up, that God's Spirit's the one, like you said, responsible for it. That's a huge encouragement. And those of you listening, please do pray for Chevy Chase, that God would reach him. I do want to ask, so you share the gospel, all kinds of, guys, go to his website, go to Dylan's website. You're going to see just an amazing amount of people he shared the gospel with. And he has the receipts, he has the pictures in case anybody's looking at this like, I don't believe it. He's got the pictures, and they definitely predate AI. You can see throughout the years, Dylan through the years. Okay. So I want to mention though, so you've talked to people from Ozzy Osbourne who recently passed, and that kind of went viral because I think he passed that interview about you giving the Bible to him. And you've talked to Tom Cruise, and you just mentioned before we started recording Jeff Goldblum and all these different very just interesting people. Man, you're in Hollywood. You probably have an interesting personality if you're in Hollywood.
Right.
But what are some of the most profoundly impactful stories? Can you think of one that you're always going to walk away? Maybe you share it at church most often. What's impacted you the most where you've seen God move on someone?
Without a doubt, Jerry Lee Lewis, one of the founders of rock and roll. It's increasingly sad to share that at churches, and I look at youth kids and they're like, who's that? I'm like, but and this is again a great story and reminder to the people that you don't know how God is working in your life, and you just don't even realize it. So little backstory on Jerry Lee Lewis. He was raised in a Christian home, went to Bible college, knows all the gospel music, has family members that were in ministry, whether you agree with them or are fans of them or not, they were in ministry. And in 2015, he did an interview with The Guardian where he said, I wake up every night worried I'm going to wake up in hell.
Wow.
And his wife interrupted him in the interview and said, you're going to heaven. Don't worry about that. He goes, no, I don't know that. And she changed the topic real quick. And I was like, wow, I'd love to share Jesus with him. Here's where God was working in someone's life and they didn't realize it. My papa was in the Korean War, and he served with Jerry Lee Lewis's best friend. They became friends. And my papa, he said, well, if you're really friends with Jerry Lee Lewis, get us tickets sometime when he comes by. My wife loves him. Well, that friend not only got them tickets, he brought Jerry to the house because it was in the same town. So I have Polaroid pictures of my papa with Jerry Lee Lewis in his house playing my papa's piano. And they knew each other for a few years. They lost contact over the years. But I was like, man, that's incredible. And I'd always known that since I was a kid. And so I thought, wow, I'm definitely taking those Polaroids with me. And I even went as far as to with my papaw. Like I tried to get my papaw to go,
Mm.
and he was like, I just don't feel like traveling because it was quite a few hours away. And it
Yeah.
ended up being after Jerry's final concert, which again, people all the time have the attitude and mindset. And this is with people in general. I'll share Jesus with them later. I'll share the gospel with them later. And I'm like, tomorrow later might not come. Like, for example, Jerry Lee Lewis, I went to South Carolina to share the gospel with him. He was coming much closer to Tennessee. And part of me was like, oh, that's more convenient. I'd rather do that. If I'd waited, I
Mm.
would never had that opportunity. So I always live with the mindset of seize the moment.
Yeah. Come
So
on.
um, went to the airport, but before I went to the airport, I took pictures with my papaw in the same locations, like recreated the Polaroids. I'm like, I feel like Jerry's the type I need to show some evidence here that I didn't just find these Polaroids in the yard sale. So I had a paparazzi friend let me know, hey, he's going to be flying out at this time, this location, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, got it. I'm there. I was the only one there.
Wow.
He comes wheeling in and I approach him. Hi, Mr. Lewis. How are you doing, sir? And he said, I was doing good until you showed up. And he was being dead serious. He did not want to socialize at all. And I told him, I said, it's an honor to meet you. Oh, yeah, sure it is. I mean, just very gruff. That was just kind of, he was a curmudgeon. And I said, Roy Reynolds says hi. And he stopped that wheelchair. Where in the da 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 did you pull that name out of your butt? I said, that's my pal.
What?
And he said, no, it's not. And I said, so I pulled out the Polaroids. I said, look. And he's like, are you serious? I was like, and here's pictures with me and him now. And he's smiling. I mean, the wall immediately down.
Oh,
And
dude.
he said, well, where is he? I said, he's at home. His health. He doesn't like to travel that much anymore. Oh my goodness, you're his grandson. It was like you're talking to an old man at a coffee shop then.
Wow.
It was a completely different atmosphere. And I told my papa, God was using you 50 years ago for this moment and you didn't even know it. And so I brought up the interview, told him that's why I came to meet you. I love and care about you and your soul. The first thing he pulled out of his gift was a tract that said, How to Make Sure You're Going to Heaven. And he smiled so big and he showed his wife. He said, he knew exactly what I needed. And again, just like the interview, she goes, you're going to heaven. Don't worry about that. And he said, no, I don't know that. And so that just opened the door. Mr. Lewis, you can know that today. It doesn't matter that we're in the Greenville, South Carolina airport terminal. And full gospel presentation. He's listening. Manager's listening. American Airlines is listening. Delta's listening because we're all in a small airport. I mean, not that I'm standing there screaming, but it's ghost town. There was nobody in there, and everyone's like, "Oh, there's Jerry Lee Lewis," and they're paying attention to what's being said. And I ended with, "You can make that decision right here today." And he's nodding, and he goes, I'd really like to talk to you more, but I'm really afraid I'm going to miss my flight, which he was pushing it. How he made that flight, I don't know.
Mm.
And I said, well, my contact info is the back of all the material. You ever want to get a hold of me, please reach out. I'm praying for you. I love you very much. Jesus loves you even more. And we took a photo together. And as they were like checking in his bags, I said, one last thing. And I showed him, I had a vinyl album so back in the 60s, if you were subscribed to like a fan club or something, they didn't put it in a box or anything. They just stamped the address and name on the cover of the vinyl and sent it out that way. And Roy Reynolds had his address on there and everything. He's like, let me sign that. So he signed it for me, which I'm glad he did. And here's why. A week later, I get a letter in the mail from Jerry. And I thought this is going to go one of two ways. This is either going to be leave me alone or this is going to be good. And it was good. It was a simple note. Do not worry. Jesus is my personal Lord and Savior, Jerry Lee Lewis. And it was dated 2 days after I'd met him. And my jadedness, I'm like, this is secretarial. So I get that vinyl, I get the letter, and I'm just looking back and forth. And I was like, that's the same handwriting. And then I believe it was the very next day.
like a private detective.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
And I think it was like a day later, I looked on his Facebook and he posted, I have some really great news to share. I'm going to be recording a gospel album. I've got a message I want to tell the world. So be looking out for that. I'm going to start recording that as soon as possible. I was like, and
Wow.
there's a perfect picture of what it looks like when somebody accepts the gospel. They want to tell everybody. They want to use their platform and have that domino effect, that trickle down effect. Unfortunately, later that same week, Jerry had a stroke and he
Wow.
got put in assisted living. He was able to record part of the gospel record. That was the very last work Jerry Lee Lewis ever did before he passed away. And I just tell people that story is so powerful for so many reasons. One, it shows that you could have the strongest spiritual resume, so to speak, of I have all the work, but I don't know Jesus.
Mm.
It also shows it's never too late. You can be in your 80s at the end of your life, and not only can you still be saved, but God will use you. And that I know that story has impacted a lot of people. It really impacted me. So whenever I go to churches, I can't help but always share that story.
Well, I've got a special offer for you. If you want to have easy access to teachings at your own pace, you're not facing any deadlines, if you don't want to purchase books, but you want to learn things that nobody else is talking about, ISO School of Ministry can help you. We're going to talk about theology. We're going to talk about books of the Bible. Leading teachers like Perry Stone will cover it. We talk about prophecy with Mark Bilds. We talk about Hebraic roots with Bill Cloud. So many subjects many other schools and seminaries just don't really talk about. And we have a special deal for you. You can follow the link I'm going to provide here. Regularly, we charge $99 for the All Access Pass, but we're doing this special deal for new students here and now, $59 instead of the regular $99 for the All Access Pass subscription. Please take advantage of it. Go ahead and click and check it out, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Wow. That's powerful, man. Praise God that he sent you. I mean, that's divine intervention in that guy's
Absolutely.
life. That's wild. Perfect timing. So there's a lot of preaching. I don't know as much these days, not in every church, but a lot of people grew up in very strong, kind of like holiness focused churches. But there was this thing that a lot of people now are reacting to, that they grew up with. And there's this kind of back and forth between, okay, well, how does God expect us to live versus we've got to not freak people out if we're going to share the gospel. But
Right.
me and my wife, we throw this verse back and forth, not in like a debate kind of way, but we love to discuss it. Where Paul, he says, all right, I believe it's the Corinthians, he's like, do not uh, have fellowship with people who do this or that, and he lists all these sins. And then he says, but of course, I'm talking about people that claim to be Christian and do those things and don't
Mm,
care. He says, if I was talking about unsaved people, you'd have to leave the world entirely.
yeah.
So, uh, people treat Hollywood like it is just this completely godforsaken place that there's no hope. What message would you give people listening about, okay, listen, we've got a responsibility to reach out to these people, these celebrities who may be famous, but that doesn't have anything to do with compromise. That just means being faithful in a space of people that aren't believers. Could you kind of
Right.
talk about that dynamic for Christians?
So again, ever since I was a kid, and I grew up in very fundamental Baptist background. I'm a youth pastor at a Baptist church. That's not
Mm,
what I'm not bashing that at all. People all the time will ask me, they're like, "Oh, what denomination are you?" And I always tell them I follow the Bible. I follow Jesus.
yeah.
That's the best way to put it. But I remember growing up and people from Hollywood being put on a screen. These people are evil. These people are going to hell. Do not listen to them. This music is evil. And some of it is. I'll be the first to tell you there is evil in Hollywood. I'll also be the first one to tell you that there's evil in your local McDonald's and your
That's
local
good.
Walmart or wherever it may be. So does that mean that we should completely write off everybody that works at that establishment? That, oh, so they work there, therefore they must be evil? No, not at all. Um, it's funny. One of my favorite things to watch is Chris Hansen with To Catch a Predator.
Mm.
I don't know why. I find it funny. It's sad, it's disturbing, and it's also funny hearing these people try to make these excuses. But I recently saw him catch somebody at Walmart. And I'm like, okay, so are we going to just write off Walmart is just full of nothing but pedophiles that are evil? No, I have a very good friend who works at Walmart down here, and I know that's not his character. So why are we doing that with Hollywood? It's because that has been what has been preached to us for so
Mm.
long. And yes, we see a lot of, I think it's just more in our face because there's a spotlight on Hollywood at all times for these people, their actions, what they say, what they do. It's the whole world's business is what happens. I don't know about you. I don't want a spotlight on me 24/7.
Yeah.
I
My
mess up
word.
all the time. And I think people a lot of times will be like, oh, wow, he's far from perfect. Exactly. I'm not perfect. There's one who is perfect, and that is Christ, and that's who we're pointing to. But what we see is like this fall, we have what seems to be a very blasphemous movie starring Nicolas Cage as a horror adaptation of Jesus. It looks horrific. It looks evil. It's heartbreaking. And I know a lot of people now are like, oh, well, Nicolas Cage, write him off. He's pure evil. Why do we expect the unsaved to act safe? They don't know. How will they know without a preacher? I remember one time I was evangelizing to Cheap Trick, the rock band, and Robin Zander, the lead singer. He at first it was very quick. We were in the airport. He came walking through. And I was saying, "Hi, Mr. Zander, how are you?" He's like, "I'm doing good. I got to get going." I was like, "That's fine. I just got you this gift. Wrote you a letter. You can look at it in your own time. Love you, man. I'm praying for you." "Oh, thank you. Can I get a quick photo with you?" "Yeah, sure." There we go. And I thought that was going to be it. But I'm standing off to the side and he's standing by baggage claim. And what it was is where he said, "I've got to go." He just didn't want to socialize. But I see him, he's looking through the gift and he's looking over at me. And then he like whistles louder than I've ever heard across the airport. And he goes, so I walk over. He said, "Can I ask you a couple questions?" I said, "Absolutely." "Why us? Is it because we're evil, God-forsaken rock stars?" I said, "No, you're not evil." He said, "Okay, well, so already I don't feel judged." I said, "No, not at all. I like quite a few of your songs." "Who else is reaching you guys?" "Nobody." I said, "When was the last time you were walking through an airport and somebody handed you a tract or something?" He said, "People still do that?" And I pointed, I said, "Well, you got the Jehovah's Witnesses over there doing that right now. That's bad. Don't go over there." And that's a cult. He's like, "Well, I'm not an idiot." And I said, "Yes, people are still doing that. People are still evangelizing normally with the truth. You guys are unreachable because of either," and I pointed to his manager. I said, "Either because of her, because she will play bounce off, but I was able to kind of get in because I had an album and I'm like, hey, would you mind signing?" And that causes them to stop. And as they stop, you start talking. I said, so I went the fan approach that makes you realize I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to share this with you because I do love you, because I do care about your soul. He said, "That's really beautiful. I really appreciate that." Because he said, I believe in God. Not really sure what that looks like in the big aspect of things. So I'm definitely not anti-God. So I appreciate this very, very much. Can I take a nicer photo with you now? And so again, he was just really nice. I've gotten to meet him a few times since then. But I think that right there kind of sums up where a lot of Hollywood even thinks of Christians. There's a very infamous video of Billie Eilish. She's being interviewed and she said, "Christians are so mean. I read the comments. People think I don't read the comments. I do. And I'm just posting a selfie and people are posting, this girl worships Satan and is going to hell." And I'm like, I don't even know what I believe. I'm agnostic. So if that means I'm not sure if there's a God, that means I definitely don't know if there's a devil. Why would I be worshiping somebody I don't know if even exists? But again, though, I think one of the worst things that's happened with Christianity is social media, because we get on our keyboards, we think nobody else is on the other side of that screen reading what we're saying, and it's really affecting people. It's really hurting people. And I mean, I don't know about you, but if there was a people group that I was interested in looking into, like say for just the sake of the matter, imagine I'm not a Christian, but I'm curious and I'm posting pictures with my family or I'm posting pictures with my friends and we're doing something that is ungodly, but I don't know that because I'm not a Christian. And the people that I start to become interested in are commenting, telling me how awful and evil and wretched I am. I'm not going to listen to a single word they're saying. That's the same as, I've evangelized to Lily Tomlin, Elton John, several other people who are well known in the LGBT community. And people will come to me and say, so how did you address that they're living in sin? And I'll tell them, I didn't. And that makes a lot of people mad at first. And I've been questioned. They're like, so is homosexuality a sin? Yes, it is. So is lying. So is cheating. So is stealing. So is looking on another person with lust. You start naming all these other things. I said, so when I met Bill Clinton, I didn't stop him and go, your affair with Monica Lewinsky was a sin. No, that's not what we should be doing, but yet that's what people seem to be doing.
Yeah.
Instead, what needs to happen is, let me introduce you to Jesus. We need to do the woman at the well approach. So in John 4, one of my favorite stories, Jesus comes to this woman. Jesus knew everything about this woman. The same way we know a lot about these celebrities. Because again, when I'm going to meet these people, I know where they stand a lot of times, not just as and spiritually and religiously, but also just where are their morals? What are they doing? I know a lot of that going into it, the same way Jesus knew everything about this woman. So
That's good, man.
he just starts talking to her. He starts telling her, yeah, if you drink of this water, you're going to thirst again. If you drink of the water that I will give you, you'll never thirst. And so she starts talking, and he goes, go tell your husband to come here. I don't have a husband. Yep, you told me the truth. Yeah, you've had 5 husbands and you're living with a man you're not married to right now. So you told me the truth. Good job. Again, I always loved that aspect of Jesus because
Yeah.
I play that a lot of times as a youth pastor. I'll ask a question I know the answer to, and it's like, okay, good. You tell me the truth. What did you ask me? I want to see if you tell me the truth.
Yeah.
And then she starts freaking out, and he starts sharing the love of God with her. He starts sharing his message that he is the Messiah. He is the one and only way to be saved. And what that woman did is exactly what we need to see happen in Hollywood, in our churches, and in our communities. She goes to the very people who were persecuting her, the very people who were mocking her, the very people who were judging her. She said, come meet this man who told me everything that I ever did. Her message was, this man knows every sin, everything I've ever done wrong, and he still loves me. And what's fascinating to me is the entire city came out. She not only went to the people she was trying to avoid, but the whole city came out. And I'm sure there was mumbling and talking of people like, well, first of all, I got to see this man. I got to see, who could possibly love this woman. But also, I'm sure there were some people who are ashamed of their own lives, of their own secrets that they were trying to hide. And they probably secretly were like, well, maybe I have a chance at somebody forgiving and loving me if he could forgive her. And again, what I notice about Jesus's approach and how Jesus would evangelize, so to speak, he didn't stand there and start lecturing her about having sex outside of marriage, shacking up with her boyfriend, so to speak. He shared the gospel with her.
Mm.
And once the gospel takes root in someone's life, everything that's when the Holy Spirit steps in. That's when conviction hits. That's when you want to serve God. You want to live for the Lord. You don't want to sin because, the Bible says very clearly in Romans, God forbid you have the get out of hell free mindset. And because of that, and again, some people would say, well, Jesus, constantly condemned sin. Yes, he said, go and sin no more, but he also preached love.
Yeah.
That's why, Bible says very clearly in Corinthians, if you speak with every language, you know all of God's mysteries, but you have love, you are nothing. And I
Mm.
think that's where we stand with Hollywood. We don't have love towards Hollywood. We just have a hatred, and that needs to change.
Wow, man, that's so powerful. From beginning to the end, even here in closing, there's so much that's been unified about your message and your approach because even the way that you started with gospel tracks and built into these personalized Bibles, it was all based around this increasing, like you said, like a muscle, yes, to minister to these people, but also you grew in your ability to get to know more about them and present almost this affection for them, which is
Right.
mine. I was thinking exactly about that, where the Bible even talks about, like you said, the woman at the well, even in 1 Corinthians 14, like it talks about it when God lays somebody's heart bare in front of them. Like God knows things about us that nobody knows. And when anyone sees that you have this personal interest and this investment in who they are, what they've been through, it opens up their heart. It opens
Absolutely.
up, so it's incredible, man. Thank you so much for what you've done for the gospel. I know all glory to God, but Bible
Amen.
also says credit to where credit's due. Thank you for what you've done. It's
Hey,
incredible.
I John 3:30, he must increase, I must decrease. Our mission in the ministry is to not bring attention to ourselves, not to bring attention to anything about us, but we want to see the message of Jesus continuously preached. And even through Ozzy, one thing that I saw, and it's so amazing, God used Ozzy, rather Ozzy got saved or not. I pray that he did. But God used that, because where that did go viral, I can't tell you how many people in just the rock and roll fandom base reached out. Hey, can I ask you some questions about Jesus? We saw
Wow.
several people make decisions through phone call, through messages on social media saying, I want to know more about this. I was backslidden. My parents raised me, which again echoes the verse, train up a child the way he should go. And when he's old, he won't depart from it. They're like, I know I need this. And this one guy was like, if Ozzy Osbourne could be open to look at a Bible, I should be open to look at a Bible. And I have
Wow.
some questions. And that's what we want to see with this ministry, not just to see celebrity souls saved, but the fan base. That's, we're trying to reach that as well. Again, we're in lines with a lot of these people for hours. And also just to encourage the church that one soul is worth it all. And to last thing I'll say is this: Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, he has an amazing and powerful quote. People look at Hollywood as Sodom and Gomorrah when truly it's Nineveh. And I was like,
Mm.
man, that's a good reminder right there.
Wow, that's incredible.
Oh,
And
I
just
know.
like you said in Romans, like who will go? Who's going to believe if there's not a preacher?
Right.
Powerful, man. Is there any closing statement you'd like to make to people that are hearing you now, young and old, who, in this nation, we struggle sometimes to have the boldness to talk even to our neighbors. We're in a low trust society more than ever
Right.
before in America and the US. What encouragement would you give about sharing the gospel?
My encouragement is this: don't wait until you read someone's obituary to wonder where they stand spiritually. Because I have, again, with the celebrity ministry, whenever a celebrity passes away, um, immediately my phone starts blowing up. Whether that's people wanting to know if I evangelized to them or just letting me know. And it always breaks my heart, because it seems like there's always a couple people, I'm praying for them right now. It's too late. They're in eternity now. The time to pray, the time to evangelize, the time to do something is now. But we get so caught up and so focused on the here and now because we have very finite minds. We can only see what's in front of us, it seems. And we worry about what people think of us. And I'll say what I say to my youth group. You're teenagers. You're awkward anyway. Why not be awkward for Jesus? Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters in our life is where we stand with Jesus and our relationship with him, and who we try to bring to Jesus. We can't take anything from this world with us except our souls, and try to reach out and grab as many souls to take with us. Again, we can't do the saving, but we can introduce them to the one who does save. And I just recently, just yesterday, we were talking about inviting, I'm always telling my youth kids, invite your friends to church, because even though we live in the Bible Belt, the high school here, it's one of the most godless high schools I've ever been in. We do a Bible study every Wednesday morning, and just walking in, I'm like, I feel like I'm in a spiritual war zone, even more than when I go to Los Angeles. It's bizarre. And this one kid said, I'm getting really tired of inviting my friends. I said, why is that? He said, I'm tired of them laughing at me, telling me they don't care about God, or that going to church is for losers. It's not worth it. And I said, let me ask you a question. Didn't you just have a friend come like 3 weeks ago? Yeah. I said, wasn't it worth it for him? He's not saved, but he has been faithfully coming to church. So wasn't it worth asking your friends and being embarrassed for that one friend? I guess so. I said, so you're going to just stop now when there could be a friend like that coming up. We can't get so focused on somebody who gives us a negative response. We can't get so focused on, oh, this person was unreceptive. The end of the day, we are called, go to the highways and to the hedges, plant the seed, water the seed. And my encouragement is, if there is somebody on your heart and mind that you've been thinking of while listening to this podcast, and you're wondering, I wonder where they stand spiritually, or I should share Jesus with them, do it now, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. James 4:14 clearly tells us our life is but a vapor. It appears for a little while and then vanishes away. And I think that is a very beautiful, clear picture of our life compared to eternity, because we see people all the time out vaping, all the time out smoking. And we see that little puff of smoke, it goes up and then it's gone. And it seems like nothing in this life. But just think how quick that puff of smoke is gone in this life. Imagine that puff of smoke is this life, and that our life now that is just continuously going on and on that we see that's what eternity will be like. So isn't it more important to do everything you can now for the gospel in that little bit of window you have, so that when you are spending eternity with God, you've tried to bring as many people with you as possible, because that's what
Yeah.
truly matters.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Absolutely.
It's been a huge deal. Guys, go to celebrityevangelist.org to support this work that he's doing, that Dylan's called to do, so that he can reach more celebrities, so we can be praying and see these people enter into the kingdom of God.
Mhm.
So, man, thank you so much. I did want to let everybody know that's watching. ISO School of Ministry. It's an online school. You can go to this link I'm going to give you here. We have what's called the 1 Million Souls Initiative. We have a free evangelism course teaching people how to evangelize, from social factors of evangelism to practical steps to how to even evangelize to a Muslim. So we had a gentleman from Pakistan, a minister, teach us how he personally evangelizes Muslims in his area. So please, guys, check it out, and check out Dylan's ministry. Dylan Novak, my friend, thank you so much.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Catch you guys next time on ISO Insights. Go and be blessed.